Masak. For over 3 decades, Val has worked with children, first in a hospital setting, then in the public school setting. Her extensive and thorough knowledge base has enabled her to provide her students with targeted instruction to develop their communication skills. While helping children build their receptive and expressive language skills, she enables them to develop the social and language pragmatics to successfully navigate their world, both in school and beyond. Val is especially aware of students with unique learning profiles. Over the years, she has creatively incorporated opportunities that allow these students to shine. For example, when I first came to Baker School, she created a student-directed middle school cooking class, which incorporated following directions, organizing, planning, and sequencing language, while also fostering natural and appropriate social interactions. Students also had the opportunity to share their food creations with families and friends, again, promoting the social and natural use of language. Needless to say, these classes and Ms. Masak were extremely popular and successful. At Baker School, Val is a caring colleague who goes out of her way to support the Baker team. She is always the first person to offer support and lend a helping hand. She also is the first person, if you need something, no matter what it is, she seems to have it. And that goes with furniture. Actually, one of the tables in my office, Val painted and brought into my office, and it's actually the best piece of furniture in my office, so thank you, Val. She truly values all who learn and work at Baker School, and we are fortunate to be the benefactors of her many and varied talents. We are thrilled to celebrate Val as she celebrates this incredible milestone. Congratulations, Val. Is Ray here? Where is he? Oh, he's hiding. And Ray also was. How many years were you, Ray? How many years were you, Ray?
Too many. 18.
18. Oh, Val, you are by far the winner there. Thank you.
Those of you who know me know that I am not I'm very loud. I am not a fan of a paper, so I hope that I will do justice because I am speaking from my heart about 2 people I admire so enormously. Ellen Goldberg, the very first BEEP teacher ever. She has made her mark in Brookline, and it is indelible. And she came to Brookline and became part of the Lincoln School community, where she taught preschool for many years before I arrived. And then when I came, she was developing and implementing an extraordinary program that was held at Brookline High School that incorporated the Early Childhood Child Study Center and a course that she took part in teaching on child development. It was an extraordinary opportunity for Ellen, and she, as with everything, did it impeccably well. Ellen has also been a lifelong learner. She went to Reggio Emilia. She brought back ideas and thoughts about early childhood and went about setting a standard for documentation in the classroom. She worked with a lead researcher on Project Zero and got beyond rave reviews about the kind of work she did on project-based learning. If you came to an evening of excellence in Ellen's classroom, you would be amazed not just at what children say and do, but at the pride with which they present it. Children would come in ties and gowns. They dressed for the part. There were beautiful arrays of food, and Ellen, like the proud mother hen, was looking above them and enjoying every minute of it. The treasures that were created in Ellen's class are heirlooms for those families that were happy enough to receive them. Because of the space issues, you may have heard of those, Ellen has moved, and she is now at Beep on Beacon, which I think Mary just told me sounds like a lovely restaurant. But Ellen is, again, the cornerstone of Beep on Beacon, looking over a group of younger teachers not as experienced and sharing her wealth of knowledge with them. She has offered to be on more committees than you can imagine. She was part of the very first research study done in Massachusetts on Project Impact, which looked at the effects of inclusion, you will be so shocked about this, on both children with identified disabilities and their typically developing peers. And oh my goodness, everybody benefits from inclusion. So as a result, Brookline brought back all of its children who were in a shared preschool in the Newton Public Schools and began the process of including everyone in early education. Ellen has been a mentor to so many teachers. She's been a cooperating teacher to so many student teachers that she leaves a legacy of well-educated and right-thinking young early childhood professionals. We have a lot that we owe Ellen in terms of making her mark for early childhood, and not the least of which is the fact that she was the first and only teacher to receive the Caverly Award for Excellence in Teaching. So Ellen, thank you for everything you've done and been an icon in early childhood. And not to be outdone, Barry Rosenwasser. There really are, it's hard to find the words, and I rarely have trouble finding the words for Barry. He makes inclusion work no matter what and no matter where. And I'm going to tell you a story about Barry, and you will agree with me when you hear this. One day, Barry, who was always at school, I think before the sun came up, called me from Driscoll Preschool in those days and said, Vicki, it was a big double room at Driscoll, Vicki, part of the ceiling is falling. And I, undaunted, said, well, how's the other half of the room? Barry said, I think it looks okay. And before he took another breath, the entire ceiling fell in. Now, there aren't many teachers who could just keep on teaching, moving their classroom into another space. Literally, the man teaches even when the sky is falling. Barry started not in early childhood, but he started at the Pierce School, where he was the inclusion teacher, moving his children around on wheelchairs or with braces or whatever it took to make sure they got to every class and took part in everything. I know that because I was a supervisor for student teachers and saw Barry in hallways when I was there. He was enticed to come to the Driscoll Preschool to start a fully inclusive program for children with multiple needs. When he looked in the window, another story I'm telling on you, when he looked in the window, the teacher who was going to be his co-teacher said to him, I think it'll work. I'll have my children here, and then you can have that room over there. And Barry said, oh no, that's not how we do it. And it has never been how he does it. There are more families in Brookline who get tears in their eyes over the miracles Barry has brought, and the comfort with which they can come into a school system, having been told perhaps that you are going to be nervous going to the public schools. They will never give you everything. They will never feel the same. Not true. Barry has made Brookline a gateway that is warm and welcoming and accepting and problem solving. There is nothing he won't figure out, and everybody feels nurtured and cared for. Barry is the very first award winner of the ARI Award for Inclusion in Early Education, and he is equally an icon in all of our hearts and minds. He has been a mentor to teachers we have had in our program, and he's been a mentor to teachers who went on to teach in Brookline. So thank you, Barry, for all your years of committed, dedicated service to all of the children.
Congratulations to Elaine Ivers from Driscoll School. Elaine, you can clap. Elaine Ivers excels in many areas, not just one or two. She never gives anything but her best, whether it is a project that she has a personal interest in or a job that she's given to by others. Certainly her tremendous service to the Driscoll School in Brookline is evidenced of her incredible love of education and her work ethic. She began as a math tutor, a substitute, and now is a building aide. There are certain instincts Elaine has that are hard to come by, if not naturally. A sense of how to put children at ease, to establish one's authority yet accessibility, and one's intellectual and moral leadership. How to give each child attention in a seemingly equal fashion, while honing in on the students who, for whatever reason, need special care. How to listen to a child or a child's parents and rethink one's understanding of who the child is and how the students may change over time. Experience teaches techniques and tools for managing any particular situation which might arise, but nothing is better than having the innate feeling for the life of school and all its richness and difficulties. Elaine Ivers bears all these hallmarks and does so with ease. From the moment she came to Driscoll 30 years ago, the children trusted her. Quick at learning their names and establishing a rapport with them, she jumped into forming positive relationships with them. You see, children come first with Elaine. She came to Driscoll with great experience, as she raised 6 children of her own and takes quiet pride in their accomplishments. And many I know are here with you tonight, Elaine. So you just, yeah. As an outstanding person, Elaine seldom relies on excuses or apologies, for she is a doer of deeds and an attainer of goals. She gets things accomplished without complaint. One colleague, David Euclid, said, "I don't interfere with Elaine's systems. Her attention to detail and perfection when ordering, counting, labeling, overseeing security, and boxing MCAS tests. She is a true MCAS queen. She knows the meaning of help and is ready to ask for it or give it as the need arises. She is in the business of building friendships and practicing cooperation, whether in the lunchroom, scheduling school pictures, organizing materials for homework club, report cards, or field trip permission slips. Elaine values learning as the means to become wise and an interesting individual. She puts in long hours of work into endless tasks, and she even does Starbucks runs." The following quote by Ossie Davis, I think, sums up Elaine and all she is about. "The only good advice is good example. You don't tell them a whole lot of anything. You show them by doing. You teach values by making choices in their presence. They see what you do and make judgments on it." A Driscoll colleague sums it up this way: "Nobody can fill Elaine Ivers' shoes." Thank you, Elaine, for your service to thousands of Brookline children.
So Susan Goodman, like her colleagues, has been with us for 30 years. And who could think that one could start as a substitute teacher and move on to be the attendance officer, roaming all over Brookline, making sure that those of our wonderful children who are in our schools actually do reside in Brookline. That has been Susan's pathway and journey in the public schools of Brookline. So Susan was the preferred sub at Driscoll when she started 30 years ago. And since her children attended the Driscoll School, she knew all the kids and parents. Well, you can imagine there was not a peep out of the students for whom she was the substitute teacher. And teachers were always thrilled, since all instructions were followed to the letter of the law with Susan. In the world of substituting at that time, if you knew the name of the kids, you were golden. And Susan was super successful because she knew the name of every child. That is how Susan has managed her career, dutiful, conscientious, and caring of all her students and colleagues. Susan has great pride in her job, and she takes it very seriously in the early mornings and in the late evenings, up and down and all over Brookline. Over years of services, she's made many important contacts and connections, both in the school department and all over the community. She has a way about her that makes people feel comfortable when speaking with her. She always has a smile, and she brightens up the office. She also makes sure we all have our tab, and we have read it. She also knows the right questions to ask when she's out doing her residency checks. As time has gone on, Susan has used her contacts and has branched out to colleagues inside Brookline and out to be her eyes and ears on the trails that she goes on that lead to students not residing in Brookline. A very tough job, and she never gives up. Following every lead that came her way, no stone too small or too large to move to get proof of residency. We owe much to Sherlock Susan. Much thanks and appreciation to Susan, who has served the district and all our students, even those not living in Brookline, with care, kindness, consideration, and a great heart. Thank you, Susan. So now to Jim Henry. So Jim Henry has been the coordinator for the special education department at Brookline High School. And as there, he has been a rock and a solid colleague and a leader. Jim works tirelessly on behalf of students and staff, and he always has a smile for everyone. Jim has amazing patience, amazing kindness, a true sense of optimism, and an incredible work ethic. As we look back over the last 30 years and reflect on Jim's career as an educator, the words of his colleagues and students will tell Jim's story. Amy Sawyer says she learned more about teaching, classroom management, building relationships, special education, regular education, and life in general during her years with Jim at Lincoln School than she did in all of her graduate school classes and subsequent teaching. Jim is always willing to stand up for his friends. He knows how to hold his students and his colleagues accountable, and he is the first to respond with a congratulations for good news, a hug when you need it most, advice about anything from education to family to life, or a kick in the butt when you need some motivation. Lisa Lamont Harris notes that Jim was always an incredibly friendly, kind, and supportive colleague from the first time she met him. Jim welcomed her into his classroom at Lincoln to observe and collaborate at a time when most teachers worked behind closed doors. And when Jim moved to Brookline High School, Holly Irvin remembers he had a column in the middle of his Overflow Learning Center that he labeled the Pillar of Learning. She and Jim had many adventures with interns, including Jake and Brendan, who are now our teachers, around the Pillar of Learning. And Jim was very generous in terms of learning for both his students, but also for his colleagues. Jim is a pillar himself. He is always friendly to kids in the hallway, knowing things about their families, and always asking which elementary school they came from. Jim is always ready with a kind word, a warm smile, and positive support, whether greeting a student, a parent, or colleague. Beloved by students, Jim is one to put the needs of others before his own. He embodies the joy of working with children and teens that can at times get lost in this day of increasing demands. Jim never loses sight of the importance of relationships and building personal connections. And he recognizes that for so many students and families, it is these bonds that have the most profound and long-term impact. In fact, one of his students, Brittany Rourke, returns to Brookline High School often to speak to parents about life beyond high school. She holds Jim in the highest esteem, telling all of the parents that she would not have made it through Brookline High School without the support of Mr. Jim Henry. Congratulations, Jim.
So remember when technology in the classroom was a film strip projector, or if you were lucky, a movie projector? Karen King remembers. In her early years in the public schools of Brookline, Karen worked at Brookline High School supporting the science department and the so-called technology of that time. Back then, the basement space was shared with the Library Media Center. So Karen being Karen, she also helped out that department whenever they needed support with their media hardware, like the film strip projectors. Karen's department was moved out of the basement of BHS and over to the Sperber Education Center. And then about 11 years ago, they were moved back to the basement of Brookline High. The location of the help desk has changed, and the content of Karen's department has changed at a speed unrecognizable in education. No longer is it about film strips or VCRs. Now Karen's department works with interactive whiteboards, software that's continuously upgraded, 2G this, 3G that, apps, iPads, Chromebooks, computers, Apple, PC, always changing. What hasn't changed is Karen's sincere interest in and commitment to helping everyone in our schools, adults and kids, anyone who needs assistance. Colleagues describe Karen as the go-to person at the high school. One person said, even if the question is not a help desk question, I ask Karen. She knows the answer and is always willing to help. And another colleague shared, Karen moves about her business in such a quiet way, but she's so powerful. She gets beep done, not Vicky's beep. The field of educational technology continues to change, but Karen King's kind, generous, intelligent, and respectful way of helping anyone and everyone hasn't changed in 30 years. Karen, thank you and congratulations. And it's my pleasure to introduce our final 30-year recipient tonight, who a little over 2 years ago was the first person at Lincoln School that I met. And Mary Kay Dice came to me and with a very deliberate and very urgent insistence said, we need to get to work. I know you're not starting for 2 months, but we need to get to work. We had 4 positions to fill, and we spent many hours in a beautifully converted basement office interviewing candidates and filling some really critical positions for the school. These comments were written by, collectively by Mary Kay's colleagues of 30 years at the Lincoln School. Over the past 30 years, Mary Kay has demonstrated her strong character, her work ethic, and deep empathy she has for children and parents, and her in-depth knowledge of how to meet the needs of students with disabilities. Her norms for IEP meetings are an expression of her core values. These values include listening and respecting everyone and all opinions, working towards the needs of the student, allowing for participants to be heard, working towards consensus, and assuming goodwill. Mary Kay lives these values. She's a leader and is always working to improve upon the already high-quality special education service at Lincoln School. She never rests on her laurels. She has phenomenal organizational skills and has a way of imposing order on chaos and making it look easy to juggle 1,000 balls at a time. I will add that I can ask Mary Kay for the most complex set of information, and in about 20 minutes, I have it. So it's really true. You've got a grasp of all that chaos. Mary Kay's colleagues at Lincoln describe her as someone who is always welcoming and generous with her time. They note her steadfast commitment to always doing what is best for the student and her ability to remain consistently professional and focused on student needs in her work with all parents. Mary Kay has a solution or an intervention ready for all students. She's always willing to share, teach, or reteach. Mary Kay is a true team player with a deep commitment to the Lincoln School and the public schools of Brookline. Congratulations.
Congratulations to everyone. Does anyone want to say it? Ms. Scotto.
This is, I think, my 7th year on the school committee, and I have to say that this is one of my favorite events every year. Tonight, I'm particularly happy because I have 5 of my former students, at least 5, in the room. So it is a kind of reunion for me. But I digress. What I appreciate about this night is that this is the place where you will really begin to understand what is at the heart of the Brookline schools, because it's here that we hear stories, and those stories are about people who are working with the children in the schools, teachers, aides, central office, people knocking at the door at 7 in the morning. The whole system shines on a night like this because you have so many different people and their stories come out. And when you hear these stories, you realize that the reason this school system works is that people have a commitment to the children, that they love their jobs, that they work hard, that they're anxious to make sure that we have the best school system around. So I can only say that I am exceedingly grateful that you have all come tonight to hear these stories and to celebrate these people, because if you want to understand the culture of Brookline and what makes it so special, you have heard it tonight.
Very good. Thank you so much for coming. You are more than welcome to stay for the rest of our agenda when we're talking about finance and capital and but if you would like to enjoy your evening, thank you so much for coming. All right, as the Barbara-Scotto fan club slowly leaves the room, we will try to restore order. This is what happens when you have a 25-year Haverly Award winner on the school committee. Her students come traipsing through at all hours. Oh my. There's much merriment in the hallway. Okay. And so now from the sublime to the more operational. We have subcommittee and liaison reports. We will start with finance. Ms. Stram.
The primary thing we have for an update today is budget transfers, which you did receive before the meeting and are also in our packet. And we reviewed and voted on the transfers at our subcommittee meeting, but I will ask for someone to move the vote to approve the transfers, and then if folks who were not at the meeting have additional questions, we can address them. Thank you, Helen. Second from Barbara. Is there any questions or discussion on the transfers?
Could you maybe just, sorry, I wasn't recognized, give me a 30-second overview of the transfers?
Sure. So the one of the major things you'll see is that there were some positions in that were in the special challenge section, which were RTI specialists. There were 5 FTE that were spread to other areas. Essentially, they decided that there were different needs or requirements, and so that was one of the major areas. And then we also had a higher than expected legal services, which is another one of the line items. I don't know, Mary Ellen, is there any other sort of major bucket that you would highlight that we should? Yep. So, any other questions or comments? All in favor? Great. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Stram. There was a week ago Monday, Mary Ellen Dunn and Joe Connolly presented to the Town Meeting Members Association, and so it might be worth. Do you want to just say a minute about that presentation and what you said to them, and how well it went? Wasn't it a week ago, Monday? Anyway, whenever it was, the one to the Town Meeting Members Association, the Town Meeting Members Association on the budget. It is the Town Meeting Members Association has asked for more presentations on the budget, and there were many people who turned out, probably 50, 60 people. I don't actually know how many were downstairs in room 103, but Ms. Dunn did a terrific job presenting. Do you want to just give us a 1-minute view of what you did?
Yes, Mike Salmon and I presented to the Town Meeting Members Association on how the budget is developed. Mike Salmon took specifically the town appropriation side and sort of how the school department integrated with that, and then I covered our process and timeline and how they can engage in our timeline going forward, and sort of what some deliverables would be for them, and took some opened up the dialogue for some feedback on the document and some things that they were looking to see and hear, and took a sign-up sheet and received some feedback that we got a budget book sent out, and they received it sent out on Tuesday and received on Thursday, and they were very appreciative that it only took a couple days. And so I think we'll keep we've also done some preliminary work to embed their timeline into our budget calendar for next year. So they were very interested in the transparency and openness of the approach that we're taking.
And we got more positive feedback and emails from the Town Meeting Members Association than at least I've seen since I've been on school committee for the last 9 years. It was really extraordinary, so thank you for that.
Welcome.
Madam Chair, speaking only as a town meeting member who gets the Town Meeting Members Association listserv, I think it's safe to say that listserv just doesn't tend towards the positive comment. And with the exception of Mary Ellen Dunn.
Yes.
Where there have been so many kudos among town meeting members, even that she didn't see, it's really been extraordinary. So you must have done an amazing job.
She did her completely, exactly what we get every single week. She just did it for them, and they were very pleased. So. All right, anything else? Okay. Capital improvements. Mr.
Yes.
Lepsky, will you?
So I'm pinch hitting tonight, and I hope I don't strike out, but let's try, because I didn't take the minutes at the last meeting. However, we're going to start with the actual vote that we have, and this has to do with what Mr. Pollack was explaining last time about the Devotion Project and how we have a construction management company that's working with us on this project, and we have determined that it, through much guidance, that it made sense to go out for an early bid package on some of the preparation stuff for the building, the steel, the electrical, the concrete, and site work, in order to finish the project on time and to make sure that we get it there on time. This is new for us, and the reason that it's a change order as opposed to just the regular contract is because of the system that we're using now. So it seems weird, but this is all money that is within the budget, and the project is basically on budget, which is really important, and on time so far. So I see Mr. Quigley standing in the back, and I know he can do a much better job at explaining some of this than I can. I certainly
move it and then.
Well, yes, I'll move the change order, and somebody second? Mr. Quigley.
Good evening. My name's Tony Quigley with the Brookline Building Department. And as Ms. Charlepsky stated, this is change order number 4 to the contract between Shawmut Design and Construction and the town of Brookline. This change order is in the amount of $19,077,463.61. And as Ms. Charlepsky said, the reason it is a change order is because Shawmut has been under contract, is already under contract with us for approximately a year. And this represents...
Actually, it would be good if you spoke into it so people could hear.
Sorry about that. This represents early bid package works for hazardous materials abatement, demolition, earthwork, concrete, and structural steel. And should you vote favorably on this tonight, as has the Building Commission and Board of Selectmen already, we would commence mobilization on Tuesday of next week, the day after the school ends. And the move out of, in anticipation of this project, the move of Devotion School has already commenced and would be completed by July 10th. And actual work on site would, the actual work would commence on July 11th. And in the summer, we'll be bidding the balance of the work, which is estimated at approximately about about 65 million, because this includes a whole bunch of it at this point. And we'd be back to you in early fall with the balance of the work. And the school will be completed on July 31st, 2018. We'll move back in August in time for the 2018-19 commencement of the school year. So that's the very brief summary of what I'm asking you to consider this evening.
Are there any questions from the school committee?
Not a question, but just as a school committee member and also a Devotion parent, I would just like to say that I am delighted to be able to make a vote that would allow this project to commence. It's very exciting, and thank you for all your hard work on it.
But there's no conflict of interest here.
It is very exciting, and I just want to clarify a couple of things. So should you vote this tonight, on Tuesday we'll be moving in the trailers. They will be placed where the current basketball courts are. One basketball court will remain outside of the construction fence for continued use by the community for some period of time. At some point we'll have to extend the fence over and capture that court as well. But so you'll see some very significant changes in the coming days, should you approve this.
So, so as we're talking about memory lane here today, so one of the first things that I did as a new school committee member in 2005 was to be taken on a tour of the Devotion School by a group of concerned parents and PTO members and teachers, I think maybe some, but mostly parents, pointing out to the school committee the many ways in which Devotion was decrepit, in need of renovation, too small, any number of things. Anyway, so like Ms. Stram, I am thrilled to be able to cast a vote that will get that project that we said at the time was needed actually started. So thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Glover.
You may have said this, so maybe I missed it. The work with the cast-in-place concrete and the structural steel, what exactly is going to be happening with that as part of this work?
This work includes all of the concrete, the building concrete, not the flat work, meaning sidewalks and site concrete and retaining walls. But it is all building concrete and all of the structural steel. So it's essentially the skeleton of the building. And it involves the demolition of the parts of the building of the existing structure that need to be removed, and all the associated earthwork, shoring, and underpinning of the 1913 building. And so it's approximately, this is approximately a fifth of the work of the project. And this is done so that we can deliver the building to you in 2 years, because structural steel is a long lead item. It takes many months to get the shop drawings done and approved, get the material fabricated, and get it on site. So while all that's happening, we'll be doing the demolition and the concrete work and the earthwork. And this has been a culmination of 2 or 3 years, as Ms. Trelewski can attest to, and I have to thank her very much for her efforts have just been outstanding. And we're extremely excited to move into construction finally, should you approve.
When you come back the next, or I don't know, how many more times will you be back?
Many times.
We appreciate that.
Some are glad to see me come, but most are glad
I'll
to
be
see me
happy to
go.
see you when you come back. I'm just curious how many, until we get to a final GMP.
The final GMP, there'll be one more final GMP.
Okay.
But that doesn't rule out change orders at any point in time.
Right.
Owing to latent conditions or other things that are just not contemplated in either of this GMP or the next one.
Right.
There'll be one more GMP.
Right. And the going with the interim GMP, this is the first time we voted on an
That's
interim
right.
GMP, right? Going with the interim GMP, that's being expressly done to speed up the process, right? That wasn't the original plan.
It was suggested by Shawmut Construction. It was really, when Shawmut was selected by the town some time ago, that's really what they proposed to us at that time. And but we needed to discuss it with them and with the design team as well, and become convinced that it made sense.
Just to be clear for people who don't know, GMP is guaranteed maximum price?
Correct.
Yes?
I can't resist following Ms. Stone's remark, because when my children entered Devotion School, the renovation had just taken place. My children's birthday is next week. One will be turning 43 and one will be turning 45.
I think you did her one better.
All right, without further delay then, we are going to vote
You don't want to hear about
on this
my story?
urgent project that's 43 years old. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? I wasn't actually asking. Okay, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Quigley.
And also,
you
we
very
have
much.
to thank Mr. Quigley. I mean, you know. Without him, this project would not be where we are today, and he has been, I mean, well, you guys know from many other projects, but on this project, it's been fantastic, and thank you for all your help. and
Thank
hard
you for
work.
your kind words. The truth is, I only have that much of it. It's a very large effort on the
I'm not
part of
sure.
many. So. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amen.
There was a community meeting at the Devotion School, which I unfortunately wasn't able to attend, but I heard it went fairly well. I'm not sure if other people did go to that meeting. It was more to discuss the construction process, what's going to happen. The landscape architect was there, and to help the community to know who to call if there's problems. So, so that's Devotion School. The Capital Subcommittee met on Monday and discussed a few items, two of which I think I'll leave. I don't know if you plan on doing the meeting on the 9th Elementary School and the meeting on the high school.
We're going to do this under additional liaisons and updates.
Okay, so then I won't deal with that. We did discuss the music school lease, and were you standing up to talk or no? Okay, I wasn't sure. And felt there were a few things that needed to be worked on in that lease, and I think it will be coming to the school committee at our workshop. We also talked about the extended day program agreements that, as you will all remember, there are fees now for using our spaces, and that was negotiated a couple of years ago. There was a 50% reduction in the first year in order to move the process along. We only began somewhat, maybe in the middle of the year then, but this last year was this coming year will be the first full year of those fees. There were some other facilities-related updates, but I don't remember right now, to be honest. So I think we'll be fine.
Okay, very good. With the permission of the committee, one of our, I don't know, honorees, is that what we're calling you? We're so excited. Later on, we're going to be introducing new staff and recognition of search committee members. But one of our, not quite new staff, but long-term staff in a new role needs to leave. So if it's all right with everyone, and Mr. Bott is willing to introduce somebody who needs no introduction, since Mr. Meyer has been part of our community for such a long time. Later on in the agenda, we'll be introducing all sorts of new folks. But since you are our new interim headmaster, we are incredibly excited to have you. Do you want to say a couple things? Okay. And we wanted to do it while you were still here in your remaining 4.5 minutes with us.
So I'll share with you Dr. Conley's comments, and then I'll add one of my own. So Dr. Conley writes, I'm very pleased to announce Dean Anthony Meyer has accepted my offer to serve as interim headmaster for Brookline High School in the 2016-2017 school year. Anthony has served as an associate dean and dean of students at BHS for the past 9 years. Before that, Anthony spent many years as a high school English and humanities teacher, including BHS from 2004 to 2007. Mr. Meyer will begin his duties as interim headmaster on July 1st, 2016, and will spend the next 3 weeks transitioning with outgoing headmaster Deborah Holman. I'm confident that Anthony Meyer will be highly effective in his role as interim headmaster. He is well known and highly respected by the Brookline school community as a collaborative, thoughtful, and caring school leader who deeply cares about the well-being of students and staff. And I will add, in the last week, we've had the opportunity to be at the high school meeting and to talk quite a bit, and very clearly Dr. Conley captured Anthony's spirit and qualifications incredibly well, and I'm very much looking forward to working with Anthony in the year ahead, so congratulations.
Welcome. So typically we ask someone to say a couple words of introduction, like what have you been doing lately? We might know some of that, but you're
been busy.
You're welcome to say anything you like. Sometimes members of our committee, usually Ms. Charlovsky, has a question.
Great, something hard.
Set up.
Not always, but almost. So.
Well, I'll just say thank you, most of all. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm delighted to lead the high school for a year. It's a place that I love. It's a community that I love. Students who we care deeply about. So it just is a great opportunity to push forward the work, steady the ship, push forward the work, develop a supportive, collaborative faculty culture that I think we've lost a little bit for various reasons over the last several years. And so I'm ready to do the work, a little daunted, but mostly excited. And I'll just say that all of you with whom I've had the chance to work with, and certainly Joe and Andrew and Jennifer and Karen have been unbelievably supportive as we've begun this transition. So thank you most of all.
Oh, we do have a question, Ms. Stone.
No, Anthony's heard all my questions over the years. So I just want to tell two quick stories. So Anthony and I served on the interview committee many years ago when we were over
Director
at
of Human
Old Lincoln.
Resources, right?
Director of Human Resources, which resulted, I believe, in Ann Wilson's
Yes,
hire
yeah.
at the time. And my son was, I think, a freshman at the time, about to go into rising sophomore, and I had no idea how to navigate the high school. I had no idea how to advocate on his behalf, and I sort of turned to Anthony and said, what do you do at the high school, and can you tell me anything about how, you know, and so I learned about the associate deans, and I learned, and Anthony was wonderful about sitting me down and talking to me just as a parent about what to expect from the high school, and I have watched him and known him, as have my kids, and benefited from your presence at the high school ever since then. So it's a real pleasure to do this. And I have to tell the other story, which is that my daughter, who also was a big fan of Dean Meyer at the high school, actually, Andrew, you'll forgive me for this, but I called her up and to tell her that we had hired a new superintendent, and her first reaction was, "Is it Dean Meyer?"
The answer was no.
Anyway, so thank you so much for doing this
Of
on
course.
our behalf, and I know the high school is in good hands.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. It's a period of growth and expansion, and so many more exciting opportunities at the high school for the next decade plus. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry to run, but have a wonderful night.
Thank
Okay.
you. We took that one out of order because Mr. Meyer had to leave. I do want to leave the rest of them, unless anyone objects. I would like to leave the rest of them in order, just in case anyone's planning to come at 7:20 for on the dot. Okay, then we'll keep going. Mr. Lepsy, were you done with your capital update, or did I?
Oh, yeah, the one, but that was, it was here at the meeting.
Was it on? Were we on TV?
It wasn't in the Capitol.
Oh, okay. Was it televised?
I wasn't here.
Well, just in case anybody is curious, and you may
Okay.
have heard otherwise.
All right. Okay.
We will tell you again.
Well, I would think somebody who was here at the meeting might want to speak about it, is what I'm saying.
We voted to suspend our 2-year waiver so that the Driscoll School Library could be named after Amy Neal, who has worked at Driscoll, who had worked at Driscoll for about 37 years, and the last 17 of them she was an absolutely exemplary librarian. She knew books, she knew kids, she was a master, she is, I don't know why I'm saying was, she is a master teacher, and I think that it's going to be a huge loss to that school that she is retiring. But her memory, not in her memory, but the memory will, I'm sorry, it's one of those days. The memory of Amy's work will remain because the library, it has been named after her, and the staff and the kids remember her. So anytime she feels like getting a little library buzz, she can just go right in, and I'm sure she would be welcome. So it is the Amy Neal Library. There was a big celebration a couple of days ago. Tuesday with many, many, many of the staff who had worked with her for years, and just there's apparently a wonderful video of 3 people doing a rendition of what Amy did, and if you can get your hands on it, send me the link.
Very good. All right. So moving on, curriculum update.
Yes.
Turn your microphone.
Sorry. So there was a curriculum meeting where we actually, it was an excellent curriculum meeting, not this last one, well, both were excellent meetings, but the one before where Jennifer Fisher Mueller sort of gave us an teaching and learning 101 course on everything that we need to know, sort of, or to have some sort of update on everything that's going on in the system. I'm not going to go through that now, but I thought it was very valuable. We have quite good minutes that Ms. Coyne took on that, and it was important for us to sort of understand, and for the new person who's coming in to understand where we are, so that we know where we're going to be going to. That was one piece. The other piece is the vote to accept the funds from the Brookline High School 21st Century Fund. And I unfortunately don't have the amounts. Maybe I'm, how did I, it seems like I haven't gotten these things. Okay. And it's to cover $214,000 of FTEs, 2.5 FTEs total. I think you got it in your packet. For some reason, my packet doesn't seem to have it, but it has to do with the capstone course, EPIC, for the high school. That's in its second year, if I'm not mistaken. The Mindfulness Initiative 2, which is in its second year. STEAM Engineering, Innovation, and Design to explore makerspace and STEAM learning pathway at BHS. I think the idea there was to use the auto lab to use that space and make that a makerspace. History is film, and that's understanding history through the lens of documentary and filmmaking. These are all courses that enhance our curriculum, some of which we may determine that we want to take on in our budget, but the 21st Century Fund has been wonderful in helping us with investing in these programs that mostly teachers have brought forward, if not all teachers that have brought forward these different areas that they've been interested in, and that fit in with the rest of our strategic plan and curriculum. The Racial Awareness Seminar, which is to understand and transform the race dialogue, and the Innovation Fellow, which I think is also in its second year, if I'm not mistaken, to catalyze innovation with the BHS faculty. The total program budget, as I mentioned, was $214,950. We have to accept those funds in order for these programs to go forward. That's our fiduciary responsibility. And so I will move it, and if we can get it. And then are there any questions, which I may not be able to answer? Yes.
Have we already voted these as course offerings?
So whatever is a course, per se, we have voted. But that we took up in curriculum, and that was way back.
Yeah, because they
had to put it into the course catalog, kids had to sign up, and there was a limit. If they didn't get the number of kids that they needed to get into the different courses, which would be the capstone course and the history is film, then they wouldn't run.
So I just wanted to remind people that these were curricular decisions that we'd already voted
Thank
on,
you.
and we had the
Thank you.
conversation
Yes.
about if these are happening, what's not happening, how's the schedule going to be balanced. So that should be all in our minutes somewhere, which I'm sure Ms. Coyne captured for us, but just so people didn't think that we were accepting the funds without having had that conversation.
No, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that comment. Oh, but first we need to vote. Did we have a second? Okay. I think we need to vote it.
Is there further discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. George, have any questions?
I don't know where all of you stand on all of this, but I just want to say that both the Mindfulness Initiative and the Racial Awareness Seminar would both be things that would be very, very well received by the student body and would be like a great like extension of gratitude. Like it would be like a lovely no one would be sad to see them implemented.
All right, very good.
Okay, and I hope some of the other ones too they'll be interested in too. But thank you for your comments. It's important to hear the student voice. Very important, actually. And we expect, well, we will hear from you soon. So I'll be quiet at this point. Anybody else have any questions?
All those in favor? Excellent. It's unanimous.
Okay, so what was the last thing you just said? Oh, yeah. So today, we had our last curriculum subcommittee meeting, and Dr. Schmuckler came and spoke with us and did a very similar process to what Dr. Fisher-Mueller did, where she basically explained to us the breadth and the depth of our special education programs and how they interface with our regular education programs. I, for one, learned things that I didn't know, and I thought I knew pretty much about the system. And the way that things interweave, to me, was the most amazing part of it, that there's some seamlessness. For students especially, the system becomes seamless, and should be. I actually had mentioned to Dr. Conley, and I'm not sure if this is possible or not, but maybe at our workshop this summer, because I found it interesting, I know the two of you did too, that maybe Dr. Schmuckler could come back and for a half an hour talk with hopefully the new person for students, Deputy Superintendent for Student Services, and the new superintendent, and the rest of us, just so that we're all on the same page and understanding what has been done in the last 5 or 6 years and how we've gotten to the point where we only have 42 kids in out-of-district placements, which is amazing. She showed us some numbers of Cambridge, which has a budget that's, per student budget, that's 1.5 times ours, and has a smaller student population with, well, we have 42, they have 164 kids in private school placements. So it's really the job that the special ed teachers have done, the regular ed teachers have done, working together with the administrators to really make everybody in the system feel included, and not just included, but be able to want to stay here and see that their needs are met. It was really exceptional listening to her today, and I do hope that we'll be able to do that during our workshop. Is there anything else I missed? People who are on the curriculum subcommittee can help fill in. I think that's pretty much it.
Questions? All right, I too want to thank Dr. Schmuckler. This might be her last school committee meeting with us. It was really incredible to just hear.
I'm sorry. Wait. No, that's not fair.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I didn't see you back there. If I'd seen you, I would have talked towards you. But I first will say something, then you could say something. But I do want to thank you for all the hard work you've done over the years. I mean, and we see the benefits of it, and it has been truly amazing, and we truly appreciate it. And we're sorry to see you go. Now.
Thank you. Oh, okay. I've been recognized by the former chair. I'm very excited. We will miss you tremendously. And what I really appreciated about this morning was really understanding the breadth of special education and where the curricular and our values pieces overlapped with the staffing pieces, and they overlapped with the regular education pieces, and they wove into and had capital implications and financial implications. And so all of the pieces, seeing them together was incredibly helpful, because I think we tend to talk about things in curriculum buckets or finance buckets, capital, so we have our silos, but we really did not up until sort of this year, because of the very careful attention you've given to it, we have not highlighted all of those interconnections, and we really only talk about special education in pieces, and it keeps popping up. And so what was helpful was just to see the whole. And so I think that's why the three of us at least found it incredibly valuable. I assume that you will have a detailed transition plan with the new Deputy Superintendent for Student Services, and so whatever that looks like, just making sure that the breadth of it is understood in all of the tentacles. I think to the extent that we can docket it for the summer workshop, and that's convenient, that's fine, but really the priority obviously is the transition plan, and whatever time you're spending together. But anyway, so thank you. It's really a tremendous, tremendous thing that you've built, and we're excited to keep it going and hopefully continue your legacy. Ms. Gatto.
I would echo everybody's thanks. It was one of the most comprehensive presentations that I think we have had. One of the things that we talked a bit about after you had left, had to go, was the fact that as a school committee, we let it go. Going on, but there's a lot of noise out there. But as a school committee, we get a lot of information about finance. We get a lot of information about curriculum and instruction. But there has been no mechanism, really, other than asking questions now and then, to have some sort of systematic way of understanding what is happening within the special ed world in Brookline. And I think we as a school committee need to think about how we can, what we can do to make that happen. Because I have to say, when I realized how much I didn't know, and I in fact have taught in the school system, when I realized how much I didn't know, I thought, this is not, you know, it's a huge budgetary outlay and has great impact on many of our students, and we as a school committee need to understand what is happening in a more comprehensive way, and so we need to figure out the mechanism for doing that.
Absolutely. And since it does come up in many different places, but it's primarily a teaching and learning curricular place, it probably lives in curriculum rather, I mean, it doesn't live in finance, although that's where we talk about it. It doesn't live in capital. It probably lives in curriculum. And this is something we've been talking about for most of this year as to where quite it lives. So it lives in curriculum today, and that's terrific. And I see our CPAC co-chair in the back, who I'm sure will help us with this as well. But it would be great to find sort of a more consistent landing home for it. Government relations, Ms. Stone.
I'll get us back on time. I have nothing for reports.
Policy, Dr. Jackson.
So you all might remember my glee a few meetings back. Sadly, I'm not coming with glee this time, because while we got ahead and we hit our goal of 3 policies for this year, we are now 4 policies behind, and I don't know how that happened. And I owe apologies to Mary Ellen Dunn, who has done her best to make that not happen. So we are considering, continuing to consider, and are very close to moving on the student fees, fines, and charges, and the financial assistance program policies, which I do hope to bring to our workshop. By the way, your workshop agenda has been blown up about 7 times tonight, and I'm going to blow it up some more. So just, you know, give up on an agenda for that, because we just have so much to do. We also, and I'm saying this publicly so Michael and Rebecca can be held accountable, we'll need to have a 2-hour meeting between now and July 11th to actually take on our USDA meal charge policy, which is not uncomplicated. As well as to touch base on our discriminatory harassment policy. And thanks to the MASC, we now need to discuss a policy on substance abuse prevention. I got an alert in my email box yesterday. Given the opioid crisis in the state of Massachusetts, and renewed attention is being put on policies related to substance abuse prevention, education, and awareness. And while we do seem to have policies in place related to how to support students, in particular who might be dealing with those issues, we need to ensure that we have adequate policies related to the prevention and education components. Yes, that's as a result of the new legislation, which I'm happy to read you the statement if you're curious about it, but that's the other thing we'll be taking up in our 2-hour meeting, so stay tuned for that calendar.
But my understanding is that's once more a mandate without any funding, correct?
To my knowledge, there was no funding referenced. That being said, what's being asked for, and maybe Dr. Schmuckler can speak to this, is not, I think, wholly beyond what we might already be doing procedurally. I think right now we make reference in our policy to the charge we give the district to educate and to engage in prevention, but it is not framed in the way that I think it needs to be to address, as a result of this legislation around the opioid crisis, the full manner of what we need to do for that. So it's not, as I've read it, it's not overly prescriptive in terms of procedures or the need for a whole lot of new procedures as much as a statement that is aligned with what we may already do around education and prevention, and we just need to line those up. So I'm not thinking it's going to be a heavy lift. We just need to make sure we're in compliance before the 2016-17 school year begins, as noted in the alert. So.
It's my understanding that there might be a requirement of screenings by school nurses in some grades, right?
So my understanding is that the verbal screenings do not need to be addressed until 2017-18, though we may choose to take them up in 16-17 if we want to from a policy perspective. The most important one appears to be the need for policies that speak specifically to educating parents and students on the prevention and use of substances such as opioids and others. So, and I think we can get there without too much trouble. Fingers crossed. We're not already in compliance, no. So, but we will be before the 2016-17 school year. So I think that's it for now. Do you want to add something, Dr. Schmuckler? Please.
So the policy on the opioid on naloxone is that all public schools have to be able to actually administer, and so part of the alert is to look at how public schools are going to respond to both being able to administer it and also to have a draft order. So actually our head of nursing, Tricia Latham, has worked with our consulting pediatrician from Tufts New England Medical, and they've actually worked on a draft policy, which I just sent you, and the draft order, which needs to be in place. So it is in draft form, and you do have it, but it is for the use of naloxone in public schools, and which means all public schools have to have them on site. And it's not just for students; it's for anyone in the community can go into a public school and be able to have it administered. So that's the. So that's what they've been looking at. So it has to be stocked, and there has to be a standing order for it.
Some questions about it, but we can do it in the subcommittee. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, we just got the alert, so I would say give us a minute to get educated and fully informed, because I was not aware of that particular piece of it. I was more aware of the other piece of it. So we will get our act together, and we will show up July 11th with some stuff for you to take into consideration.
All right. Are there any other liaisons or updates? Mr. Chang?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to report, I attended the final CPAC meeting last Friday, and there wasn't a formal agenda, but we had the opportunity to, again, express our thanks for Dr. Schmuckler and Sarah Orloff, who are moving on to their next position, and there was cake served, and at 8:30 in the morning, so we got a sugar high very quickly. And we also spent a little time, Greg and as well as Liz Mishka gave a quick update about the semifinalists that was identified for the Deputy of Student Services, the replacement. And I think in general they were quite pleased with the candidates that they have interviewed. So. In addition, I think one of the things that they want to talk about, and we spent some time talking about, is really brainstorming about new ways to provide outreach to families who, have kids with particular IEPs or who are coming into the school system and really don't know where to go. There were some really great ideas, and one of them I have to say is my own, which is Brookline Day. And I think, a lot of special interest group have tables at Brookline Days, which, gets a lot of parents and kids, a lot of young kids to Brookline, and that's, I think, a terrific venue to put the word out as well. And In addition, I think there was, I just received an email this evening that there will be another CPAC, not a formal meeting, next Tuesday at 7 p.m. downstairs. Again, it's a general information session, and I think the idea here is to, again, get the word out to really discuss what kind of special ed services are available in Brookline. So you guys just want to put it out there. The other thing I wanted to report, I was at this climate action public hearing last Monday. This is something in particular is close to my heart, even though my son just graduated from Runkle. There's going to be new solar panels placed on top of Runkle School, possibly over this summer. And basically the firm called Blue Wave Capital made a presentation. They're the one that's really enabled this process of putting this solar panel onto the building. And one of the things that they talked about, which was quite interesting to me, is at the MLK school in Cambridge, they just completed a renovation back in December of a building that is so-called net zero energy building, which basically means total amount of energy used in the building is roughly equal to the amount of renewable energy created, via solar, geothermal, and so on. So I think this is something, obviously, the committee will love to see in the new schools that are coming down the pike. So.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Any other liaisons? All right, then it is time for our student report. We have a new student liaison, Alice Jennings. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. I'm Alice Jennings. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm replacing Ethan. I hope I can be as good as Ethan Kahn. So, yeah, just summary of me. I'm a junior, or a rising senior at BHS. I am in SWS, which is how I ended up involved in this whole legislation. So yeah, that's me, and I have some things to say about schools. So first of all, the Gender and Sexuality Alliance at BHS organized a fundraiser to support the victims and families of the Orlando shooting. They were selling T-shirts, giving out ribbons to demonstrate support, raised almost $800 in like one day of like a flash overnight organized event, which I think is rather impressive. I mean, I was gonna do a little welcome thing for Dean Meyer, but I guess you guys are already very familiar with that. But I should have probably said it while he was still here, but the entire student body is, like, everyone that I've talked to about it is thrilled to have him be in that position. I've never heard anything remotely negative about Dean Meyer. He is very, very well respected in the school. And just in general, it's the end of the year. Everything's kind of closing down, at least for students. We have just finished our non-makeup finals. We just got our courses for next year. Everything's closing up. Everyone's ready for summer. And I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to work with you guys for next year.
Wonderful. Well, the student representative plays an incredibly important role on the board. It's as many of you know, it's a non-voting member, but at any time, if you have questions or thoughts, please feel free to interject them. Usually when the student report comes out, school committee members sometimes have questions just to learn more about things. We do use last names, you probably noticed that, and since I noticed your button, which says that your preferred pronouns are she, her, hers, do you prefer Ms. Jennings?
I wouldn't mind you guys calling me Alice.
So that's not the typical protocol here. We've definitely had a request in the past to not use honorific, so why don't we talk about it, and we can see if we can figure something out. All right, then. Any other questions for our new student representative? Ms. Scotto?
This is just a quick one. I'm trying to figure out what your accent is. Is it English? Is it Australian?
It's a West London.
West London.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm just curious, what made you interested in serving your fellow students in this way and us?
I'm sure you guys are like somewhat familiar with Jen Martin. Wonderful, wonderful teacher. And last year, at some point, I was like bad-mouthing legislature. I was saying that I was just saying like this useless body and nothing, like you can't get anything done. It's just like it's kind of a fake democracy. It's stupid. And then she was like, "You're wrong." And I didn't really believe her, so I ran and got on the legislature. And then I got on legislature, and I was mostly right. Because every time we tried to do something, every time I tried to bring something up, it would end up with faculty telling me that that goes up to school committee. That's not something the legislature has control over. So here I am.
Excellent. Well, at some point it would be helpful to hear your long list of observations and requests. So it doesn't sound like you're ready for them tonight, but maybe when we get back in the fall. Other questions? All right. Thank you. Welcome. It is time for our introduction of the rest of the new staff and recognition of search committee members. Dr. Connolly was so excited about this portion of the evening that not only did he want to schedule it, but he wanted to have a second reception. So not one, but two. There were more logistical or operational voices who asked him, could we potentially combine the two receptions into one? And he was absolutely adamant, no, we were going to have two receptions honoring our 30-year teachers and staff and our new staff. So we will do a few introductions. Mr. Bott will ably take us through these. And then we will pause for 10 minutes and have a welcome with all of you, and then we'll be back on the rest of the agenda. So, Mr. Bott.
I'd like to start, before introducing anyone, by recognizing members of the search committees. There are several members of search committees here tonight, so if you could just stand up and or raise your hand so we can thank you. What's been so impressive about the search process throughout the spring is the inclusiveness and the way that Dr. Connolly has structured the searches so that all voices are heard and all perspectives are taken throughout the search process. And it's been really remarkable, and I'm thrilled to introduce many of the folks who have been hired through these search processes. So I will start with Nicole Gittens, our new Deputy Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. Nicole's a veteran high school educator and comes to Brookline after serving 11 years in administration in the Boston Public Schools as the headmaster of both the John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science and as the headmaster of the Urban Science Academy. Prior to her administrative experience, Nicole was a mathematics teacher at Cambridge Rindge and Latin School for 8 years. And she began her teaching career as a student teacher here in Brookline. This search produced 47 applicants. 8 were selected for interviews, with 2 candidates being selected for second-round interviews as finalists. The search committee had 12 members with an 8-member finalist interview committee. And Nicole has the unanimous support of all of those committees. And I'm very pleased to introduce to you Nicole Gittens.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much.
We're delighted to have you. Sometimes committee members have a question or two or a word of welcome. Ms. Charlepsky.
First of all, welcome.
Thank you.
We're really thrilled to have you. I'm curious, which school did you do your student teaching in?
Brookline High. Elaine Lombardi was my
right. I remember
mentor
her.
teacher.
That must have been a while ago.
It was. Almost 20 years ago.
Well, that's great. So you know some of the system, which is wonderful, too.
A little.
Well, we're looking forward to having you here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Next introduction is Leslie Ryan Miller, Senior Director of Elementary Teaching and Learning. Leslie Ryan Miller is the new Senior Director for Elementary Teaching and Learning, a central office position approved in the FY16 override budget. She worked for many years as a primary level teacher in the Boston Public Schools. She's also planned and facilitated professional development and mentor support services for new teachers while working in the Office of Professional Development. Leslie says will be in Brookline in June, was in Brookline today and some of yesterday to begin meeting with math, ELA, science, social studies, and world language coordinators. Dr. Jennifer Fisher-Mueller and the interview team interviewed 9 candidates for this position. It's my pleasure to introduce Leslie to the committee.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me. I'd like to say I'm just very excited about the work ahead. I spent most of the day yesterday and all day today talking with Gabe and Amy, Dr. Mueller. I met with many of the curriculum coordinators, and I'm just excited to join the team. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Oh, Ms. Charlotte has a question.
No. Don't get away that easy. So, I'm sure before you came to Brookline, you might have had some thoughts about what Brookline was like in this last day or so. Any first thoughts that you might have?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. I don't mean to put you on the spot. So.
Oh, well, I'm just incredibly impressed at the commitment of the team and the excitement and enthusiasm going forward. I know there are a lot of transitions happening, but the team seems very unwavering and ready to move forward. They were very honest and open about feedback, supports they need going forward, and so I'm really looking forward to supporting them. And most of all, I'm very excited to get into schools, so that will be my priority, is to do some shadowing of the coordinators so I can learn more about their work as well as learn more about the Brookline Public Schools.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Brian Denizio as the Lincoln School Principal. Before I read the introduction, I will say that the day that Brian's appointment was announced to the staff, I dragged on the introduction for several minutes, actually to the point that some books maybe were going to start flying at me. We were in the library. And when I finally announced Brian, the entire staff erupted in cheer. A cheer that I've never received. So I complimented Brian for that, and I think it speaks to the excitement of the community for Brian's appointment. Brian will be the new principal of the Lincoln School beginning July 1. Brian brings to Lincoln School 10 years experience as a middle school teacher, teacher leader, and coach, and a school administrator. During the past 2 years, he's served as the vice principal of Lincoln School, where he's had an opportunity to team with me to create a very effective school leadership team. That's Dr. Conley's words. Prior to coming to Brookline, Brian was a middle school English language arts teacher in the Boston Public Schools in various schools throughout the city. So it's my pleasure to welcome Brian.
Thank you. I'm so excited to continue serving the Lincoln community, the staff and families in this new role. It's been a really fantastic 2 years, and I'm sad to lose my office mate to the 5th floor here, but I look forward to what lies ahead at Lincoln. So thank you.
Wonderful. We're excited to have you, and we won't ask you how many digits there are in pi, or how many you can name, but Ms. Charlevsky might have a question.
Well, I just wanted to make sure. Are you going to get a full office now?
I believe so. Yeah, we have
Have you worked that out?
there's a small construction plan for the summer to create a new office for the vice principal. That was part of the I think the dynamic teaming that Dr. Connolly referenced. Chairing an office for the last 2 years. So.
Well, not welcome, but thank you for moving into this position. And
my pleasure, so thank you.
We're very thrilled to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, there is actually on Tuesday a new office being constructed. For those of you who don't know, to solve a space challenge in a learning center that was in an inappropriately sized room, as we tried to figure out the space, the obvious solution was to share an office, which led to me often roving around the building.
So, if I may, because I actually experienced this with Mr. Bott when we were going to work on his contract, and we had no space to sit down. So we finally found a classroom that was empty, but then the music school decided they needed the classroom. So that's why I asked the question about having a principal's office.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce Michael Smith as the Heath School Vice Principal. Michael Smith was recently announced as the incoming Vice Principal at the Heath School. Michael is originally from North Carolina, where he received his BS degree in music education from Winston-Salem State University. He later moved to Massachusetts, where he worked at Dorchester High School before becoming the founding music director at the prestigious Boston Arts Academy. After receiving his degree in school administration and leadership, Michael began working with the Lynn Public Schools and at Pentucket Regional School District in West Newbury, Massachusetts, where he served as interim principal, fine arts director, and district director of arts and academic instruction. He's involved in social justice, equity, and diversity education through the National Seed Project on Inclusive Curriculum of Wellesley College. To introduce to everyone, Michael.
Good evening. It's very nice meeting you. I am excited and looking forward to work with the Brookline Public Schools. And every day I come here, I learn something different. And after coming back to Brookline after working up on the North Shore, I rediscovered what traffic is like on the red side. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Does anyone besides Ms. Charlowski like to ask a question?
You're the go-to person.
Ms. Stone.
So I don't really have a question. That's sort of on the spot, but maybe Ms. Charlowski will think of one. As you may or may not already have discovered about Brookline, our music and music education here has a long tradition and robust community support. And I just wonder whether you've thought a bit about how your new role will allow you to incorporate your rich background in music as well.
One of the experiences I had in my last district, I started a parent, student, faculty chorus. And everywhere I've gone, there's this new idea, and it's been in my head since college. And I was talking to Annie about it, and she did the same. Oh. So I like community involvement. I like parental involvement. And I think the connection between parents and students and teachers can be organic when it's something that's discoverable, such as the arts. So I like to use that as a vehicle to bring that new level of connection. And I've been very fortunate and blessed to have success with that. So that's one avenue I may pursue. If you can sing, that's good.
I will just note that I had the pleasure of being at the Heath School graduation yesterday, and Dr. Sevelius ran a beautiful graduation ceremony, many heartfelt speeches, really quite beautiful. I will note that in addition to one piece of live music, there was some piped-in music over the speakers, and I would wager that perhaps that will not be true next year. Perhaps this newly formed chorus will perform, but I'm not sure.
I agree.
No pressure.
Bring it, I got it.
Wonderful. Well, welcome.
Thank you so very much.
And lastly, I'd like to introduce someone who was not able to attend tonight, and that's Dr. Tina Bozeman, our new K-12 curriculum coordinator for physical education and health. Dr. Tina M. Bozeman has worked as a teacher and administrator for more than 20 years. In 2005, she became the first high school lifetime wellness and physical education teacher to earn national board certification. She served as the coordinator for health, wellness, physical education, and Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps for the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools. Prior to moving into administration, she taught 10 years at Martin Luther King Magnet School, where in 2011 she returned to her beloved Martin Luther King Magnet High to once again serve as the lifetime wellness teacher. Sorry, I thought there was a second page. That's it.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
The search processes are underway and continue for Deputy Superintendent of Student Services, Math Coordinator K-8, Director of Special Education for the high school, and the Lincoln School Vice Principal. We have completed finalist interviews for the Deputy Superintendent position, and job postings are active for the other searches.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So it's so Dr. Connolly's instruction to us that we will once again celebrate. So we will adjourn for about 10 minutes. We will get to eat cookies, say hello and welcome, and then we'll reconvene at 5 minutes till. Okay.
Boy, you have power. Look how quiet they got.
It did. Well, that's because it was 15 minutes over, so.
Usually doesn't.
All right, we are 20 minutes behind, but perhaps we can make it up. Okay. Our next agenda item is the interim student superintendent's report. A number of the items we've already. It's unfortunate that some of the people leaving the room are the ones who are going to give pieces of the report. Oh, you are getting them. Okay. Great. Okay. So a number of the pieces of the superintendent's report we've covered already: the 30-year staff recognition reception, and the new administrative personnel introductions, and the thank you for the search committees. So we're now at, we do have a separate item on the school district surveys, so we'll skip that one for the moment, and we'll read this when we get there. Collaborating with PTOs to create school directories. What happened to Ben? Oh, there he is. No, he's right there. So we were going to get a quick update on student directories. Mr. Lemus, if you want to give us the update. We do have a longer version in our packet, but do you want to give us the short version? I think in particular the question about the school directories was what is the legal, there were just a bunch of questions about the letter that went out, which, as everyone knows, was a second year of a letter. It was not a new policy, but I think there was some confusion about that. And so I think it would be helpful just to quickly remind the school committee of what that was, and then what the legal restrictions are, and then what flexibility we have. Could you do that for us?
Sure. So as you said, the letter that went out from the interim superintendent was reiterating a policy that was decided last year by Dr. Lupini and the staff. And it also was clarifying just in terms of what we can and cannot release. I'll go into directories and class lists in a moment, but just to clarify first what we, our obligations to protect student and family privacy. So those are determined by FERPA, the federal law, and we are allowed to share what's defined as directory information. So school districts have the ability to define what directory information is of a list of about 10 or 12 things. We have defined at this point directory information to be student name and address, parent guardian names, primary email address of the parents or guardians, and phone numbers of the parents or guardians, okay? And those are custodial parents, first of all. So we are able to share that for those families who have not opted out of sharing that. So the default is you're opted in, but you have the ability to opt out. And they do that through the parent portal, okay? So by verifying their data in the data portal, that tells us that they've read FERPA, which we have a sort of the we have the summary of those rules there, and then they choose to opt in or opt out, or choose to opt out or not. At that point, we are if they have not opted out, we have the ability to share those pieces of information which I just read as part of the directory. We've been working with the PTOs this year to clarify that change that happened at the beginning last summer, and then helping them create their directories. What they've been doing for a few years in various forms is creating a school directory, either an online version or printed version or both. And we help them by first working, when I started learning about this, I was just new in the fall, obviously. Lawrence had, just through some sharing at the townwide PTO meeting, it was pretty clear to me that Lawrence was doing a great job that other folks could learn from. So I worked with them and helped them present to the next townwide PTO meeting. And that presentation by the Lawrence PTO chair or presidents really sparked a discussion where the rest of the PTOs were sharing both how they create directories, the online systems they use, or the sort of paper systems they use, how they gather information, how they share it, how they collect it, and how they keep it up to date. So that was a really rich and helpful conversation, I think. We revisited that just last, I think 2 weeks ago at the townwide PTO meeting, and reminded them of the help we can provide. So we can provide that information or access to that information in two ways. One is we can provide information to the PTO chairs of all those families that have not opted out of directory information, and we can give that directly to them. And they can use that to create their school directories with name, address, email, and phone numbers. that, of course, because not all families have verified their information, or some families have opted out, won't be the full directory. So there's another option as well. We can send a link, so the school department can send a link to all the parents, all the contact information we have, which is everybody in the parent portal, with a link, an email that's really essentially written by or written jointly with the PTO, any given PTO, and that can include a link to their online portal or their online system, where then at that point the parent or guardian can fill in as much or as little information as they like, that they want to share. At that point, that information is under the sort of ownership or auspices of the PTO, and they can do as they want because the parents have or guardians have opted into it, basically. So that's how we're supporting them. They appreciated that. We talked through some more. That isn't a change. That's how we've been operating since last year. The good news is because we rolled out the parent portal sort of officially last summer, since then many more parents than in the fall are verified and in the system and have not opted out. Yeah.
My question has to do with the class list piece. What is the issue about sharing class lists? It would seem to me that email addresses and phone numbers would be more sensitive than your child is going to be in Mr. X's class.
Yeah. So I think there are lots of different opinions on class lists and sharing them and whether they're valuable or whether they're or not. And also what we're learning, and we need to look into this more, is that actually fewer and fewer districts are doing so. Okay, I'm not sure why. I haven't looked into that myself, but Marilyn Dunn and I will continue to do that because the questions have been raised. So that's some of the information we need to gather about are other districts doing it? If they're not, why not? What's their rationale to help us learn about it? The other piece at this point is because we haven't included homeroom teacher name as part of the directory information, we just haven't defined it that way. We don't have permission at this point to share that information. Okay, so we even if we'd like to at this point, we don't have permission from parents to share that information. So we're sort of at that point blocked by our own definition. That can be changed potentially, but at this point we don't have that permission from parents to change that.
I guess the reason that it's of concern to me is that I think that when a child starts school in September and that child will know the teacher's name, but is worried about who is in his or her class, I think that just is very anxiety provoking for many kids and doesn't seem to be in the best interest of the child. I'm not asking you to solve that problem.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand the concern. I absolutely understand the concern.
So it's been a long time since I've seen the Runkle Yellow Pages. I don't know if they're still the Yellow Pages, but that's what they were called. But it was done by grade and by class when they did it then. So
there have been significant changes in student privacy laws and how.
Well, that I understand. I understand FERPA and all that stuff. No, what I'm trying to understand is, so what is produced then? Is there a paper copy with just alphabetical order of names of kids? Or?
I don't know how they. I haven't seen the multiple ones. So they're online. Some schools have online ones, which are like actually you can look on an app on your phone, okay, or go to a website. Others have the printed one as well as the online one. I'm assuming they're alphabetical order. I've seen somewhere alphabetical order by child, but also by parent as well, so they have both listings.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So I think that everyone understands that, FERPA is important and that for a while we weren't in compliance with it. And I think everyone appreciates that at the end of last year, there was a fair amount of concern that we weren't in compliance with it. And so what was created was, I don't want to say sort of the maximum amount of privacy, but I think we went far and fast to clamp down and make sure we were in compliance. What I would hope is that now that we've been through one cycle and we're about to go through a second cycle, it might be worth just talking to some of the PTO leaders about what their experience has been with this in terms of how easy or hard it's been to build community without these lists, the experience of the principals, the experience. We now have sort of a student office. Remind me the name of the office, the intake. the Office of Student Affairs, that has more of a centralized intake and can streamline a lot of data collection. So it just seems that there may be a time to revisit it, because I think what we've heard a lot out there in the community is what's been lost in terms of the ability to do community building without class lists and without contact information from parents. And so we're happy to go out and say, but FERPA. But I think if there's just a way, if there's work that's getting done by the PTOs, it may, and it's work that we could do just as easily, it may be worth our doing it. If really is sort of we didn't ask for classroom assignment to be part of the directory information, but we could next year. I mean, I think it's just worth having the conversation about what we could or couldn't be flexible on as we think, and we probably can't do it for this fall, but even for next fall. Again, because one of the other concerns I heard, which worries me a little bit, is that the people who already know each other, because they're already in the building, they're going to find out who their classmates are. They're going to be able to set up play dates. They're going to be able to invite each other to birthday parties, but especially in the first couple months of the year, people who are newer to the school community, people who don't speak English as well, people who aren't as fluent on technology, for whatever reason, when the class lists don't come out until November, there's a loss. There's a real loss. And so I think it's just worth re-examining.
I just want to, it's not in response, but I realized I didn't explain something very well. I do want you to know, again, I think we should do just as you described, first of all. The PTOs can, when they get information from parents on their link to their online portal or online system, they can certainly say, do you want to share, who is your classroom teacher, and are you okay sharing that? So that's one way they've been able to create class lists. It's not, it works pretty well, is my understanding. And then also the timing on, just so you know, the timing at this point is sooner than that, and it was delayed a little bit last year because the parent portal was new. With the system up and operating fully now and our fluency in it, we anticipate that we can get them information in early September, and so we'll move that up a little bit at least, just for this year, so you know that.
Any other questions on this? There are a lot of questions out there. Ms. Stone.
So forgive me, I'm still confused about what exactly is being provided to individual families about the class teacher and the kids in the class. Is that what is no longer being provided?
So what we don't at this point distribute, which again, I'm sort of working on information that's been, I wasn't here when this was developed or what was happening even before, obviously, is my understanding is before we would print out and send, to families what classroom their child was in and the list of the kids who were also in that class with them.
That would typically come from the school.
From the school, right? That's my understanding, right? And that approach was changed, I think at the end of last year, and so no.
That was the compliance with the FERPA. Yeah, I would just, I again echo everything that Ms. Didkoff just said about understanding the protection issues, and there are privacy issues within privacy issues that I know we need to be very sensitive to. But as a parent who went through many, many years of anticipating and getting those class lists, I agree that we really need to be sensitive to the amount of connection to a school and classmates that is created in the build-up to the school year. And we really do need to strike a balance so that families are not left in the dark as a result of, I don't want to say an over-attention to privacy issues, but too rigid, I guess, an attention to the privacy issues. I think that's really, really important.
Dr. Jackson?
As a former Pierce parent who went through this, you did describe it accurately in terms of the class list we used to get with the teacher's name, which frankly, while I appreciate everybody's focus on the fact that it helped people do things like build community or give people a chance to say, oh, all these kids are here, let's have a picnic. And mind you, they didn't provide email contact information. It was literally children's names. And frankly, the other thing it produced was a whole lot of animosity and frustration, because when your kids didn't end up in a class with their best friends, you spent the summer angsting over that. And so I think the other side of this, the other side of this is that you actually set people up for a lot of stress, either way, whether it's the anticipation of knowing or the knowing and the knowing that your kid's going to be in a class by themselves. And the community conversation around that is often not pleasant in the summer. So as a parent, for me, it was actually nice not to know, because we spent time instead focusing on the fact that you develop friends across all of your classes, and that, you know, now as a new student, that's a different thing. If you're brand new to the district, I can appreciate the need to do something much more expansive and connecting. But as a student who's going from, say, 2nd to 3rd grade, you know, I think we need to just pay attention to both sides of the conversation when we're doing this, and not set our students up to expect that you're always going to be with your best friend or with the teacher you wanted, was always the other issue in the mix. I will say, too, that I thought, at least at Pierce, and I think to your point, maybe it was also Lawrence or the other, was it Lawrence you mentioned as an example? Or
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The PTOs, and I do think we have to be mindful of this in terms of how people perceive of the role of the district and how we build community in the schools. The PTO stepped up and did a really amazing job for the directory at Pierce, and did exactly what you said in terms of not just asking parents what you wanted to have in it, but contacting you as early as they could, sort of set it up, organized it by grade. You could search it. Ours was, they did a phenomenal job with that directory. It was even better than the paper directory. You could organize, you could find it by teacher, you could find it by grade. And so I think the point I want to make is that I think we should be mindful of sort of the role of the PTO in building that community, and the potential sort of, I don't know, I sort of, you know, we often want to default to the district to do everything, and I kind of liked that the school did it. I think there was something about that made it more our own, and not dictated by the district in the way that, like, oh, we have to do the district data thing. And so I just think it's a different perspective to take on it, and I think there are ways, and it sounds like we've gone even further in providing support to them to build it, which is great. So it's like one less step they even have to do to get the information. So that's just one parent's perspective from Pierce. Right.
And I think there certainly are parents who we know who abuse it, right, and who, you know, badger principals and try to get their kids' class assignment changed, and it's a problem. But it also seems like that is one of many parent management issues that our principals deal with, and I think it's also worth asking the PTOs whether they like that role, because I think some of them might see it as a community building role. I've also heard a lot of complaints from PTOs saying, you already have this data, why do I have to go collect it again? And that's irritating. So all I want us to do is have here are the pros, here are the cons, here are the choices we could make, and, you know, here's the best we can do, and be able to explain that to people. So anyway, all right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay. What else do we have? School capital repair projects. I'm on number 5. There's a list of capital repair projects, which is extensive. And if anyone doesn't have, I'm going to assume no one has questions on that. Okay. Moment of silence. I'm sorry that Mr. Meyer isn't here, but maybe Ms. Jennings would be willing to talk to us about the BHS moment of silence for the victims of the Orlando shooting. You mentioned something earlier. And apparently, the superintendent wanted us to know that Headmaster Holman introduced the moment of silence with these words. I would like the Brookline High School to pause together in honor of those who died and were injured in the Orlando, Florida tragedy over the weekend. Please keep in your hearts and minds the victims, their families, and in particular, our larger LGBTQ community. The Orlando incident was an egregious and violent event that once again brings to the foreground issues of hate, aggression, and gun control in our nation. In the face of this tragic national event, we as a community must think about violence, hate, and aggression in our local context. We must make sure that we resist bullying and harassment in any form in school, in the town of Brookline, or in the workplace. As a school, we are each called to protect and advance only the good of our community, only the good of our community, and to stand up against hate. Please join me in a moment of silence. And after that, a letter was distributed to many members of the Brookline community by Dr. Schmuckler, which is in your packets in the back, which I thought was a terrific letter. I'm not sure if would you like to add anything to this?
Maybe I missed some communication, but that was like a lovely address, and I don't think I heard it over the loudspeakers. I think we had a very, very brief message. It was like a couple sentences long. I wish that was read out. That was a lovely thing. But I know I feel like it was kind of rushed, and I feel like there should have been a more impactful, more dedicated moment to it, which would have been provided by that message if it had been read. I don't know. I might have missed it, though.
That there wasn't a moment of silence at the beginning of the school day on Monday?
There was a moment of silence in the middle of the school day, and it was just kind of like, oh, there it is.
Okay.
But I could also be missing something in the system, so.
We can ask Dr. Carnley about that when we see him. Thank you for letting us know. I'm also sorry that Dr. Schmuckler left because there's quite a nice note from her. Ms. Strem.
Question, and I don't know, since Dr. Connolly isn't here, I don't know if anyone can answer, but I'm curious what, if anything, might have been done to acknowledge the event in our K through 8 schools, in particular in middle school.
I don't know. Did everyone see the letter from Dr. Schmuckler? Should I read it out, or? This is a memorandum from the Office of the Deputy Superintendent of Student Services to Public Schools of Brookline students, staff, and families from Dr. Schmuckler. And the subject is ensuring safe and supportive schools. A core value of the Public Schools of Brookline is respect for human differences. As the 2015-16 school year draws to a close, I want to provide you with an update on important work regarding support for our students, staff, and families who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning, LGBTQ. The Public Schools of Brookline is committed to providing a welcoming and inclusive environment for all our students, staff, and families. Our students who are LGBTQ must feel safe and supported at school so they can thrive academically and socially. Our staff who are LGBTQ are entitled to a workplace where they are welcomed and affirmed. Our families who are LGBTQ are similarly entitled to an environment in which they are fully included and welcomed in supporting their students' education. The Public Schools of Brookline prohibits any discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity or gender expression, and discrimination is prohibited under state law. At the beginning of the 2016-17 school year, the Public Schools of Brookline staff will be provided with additional training, support, resources, and guidance to ensure that all students, staff, and families who are LGBTQ feel welcomed and supported in the district. I would like to thank Mary Brown, Christina Palmer, A.C. Sevelius, and Darby Nefver, who will continue to lead this important and ongoing work. Wishing you all a restful summer. It has been a privilege to serve you. From Dr. Schmuckler. Any other thoughts? Okay. Any other updates or questions on things? Sure.
I think it's just worth saying that I have been a student facilitator for the GSA as of last year, and like I think it's worth mentioning Kate Leslie as the staff facilitator of the GSA at school, and we as a club we have been working hard to try and make the school a more inclusive, more accepting, and generally a better place for queer students, and so that is an active, ongoing issue, that there is an active student body and faculty body that is working towards that, which I am part of, so if you have any questions, I'm involved in that.
That would be terrific. We had an extended conversation about all gender bathrooms and some other gender neutral language with Ethan. So we miss Mr. Connor. We're delighted to have you. Thoughts on this? Okay. I was going to ask the superintendent for an update on negotiations, but he's not here. I don't know, Ms. Stone, if you want to provide an update. You may not, or you may. It would be nice if you could. Okay.
I am sorry that I'm not able to report to you all that mediation has brought us to agreement with the Brookline Educators Union after, I think it's 5. It's either 4 or 5 mediated sessions. It has not yet. There is another session scheduled for June 29th. This has been an enormously frustrating time for us on the negotiations team, which is Mike Glover, Elaine O'Sullivan, Deputy Director of Human Resources, and Mary Ellen Dunn, Deputy Superintendent for Administration and Finance, and we work with Liz Valerio, who's our Labor Counsel. In large part because over the last many months we have put substantial money offers on the table and recently time offers on the table, and also during mediation that the BEU has not accepted. For our paraprofessionals, we have made offers for both pay and hours worked that improve the largest paraprofessionals' pay scale in substantial ways. In addition, we have offered a very substantial increase of $500,000 in new money next year to more significantly increase the wages for almost 100 specially skilled and trained paras who have been the most difficult for us to recruit and retain in Brookline. And the BEU has rejected those offers. For the Unit A teachers, we have offered a 2% general wage increase for the next 2 years, which is consistent with the funds made available by the override and consistent with what is happening in other school districts. When added to the annual increases in the steps that are built into the contract, this amounts to a wage increase for about 70% of our teachers who are in steps between 5 and 7% each year of the contract. In response to the teachers' repeated requests for more time, we have also, in mediation, proposed an additional year, effectively a 4th contract year, that would add enough minutes in the elementary school schedule to be able to give teachers the additional prep time they have been asking for. Our proposal would bring the workday of elementary level teachers up to the workday that is already established for high school teachers in the same unit. And this adjustment also has the benefit of providing more time to be used at elementary teachers' discretion at the end of the student day. For that 4th year, and in light of that workday increase for our K through 8 teachers, we have offered a 2-1 split increase. That's 2% in the beginning of the year, 1% in the middle of the year, which is a 3% increase on the base salary for the year, plus a new step at the top for all of our teachers already on the top step. That increase would be for everyone in the bargaining unit, some 840 or 50 teachers, including the hundreds of teachers whose workday would remain the same. So to sum up, the offers we have made in mediation amount to a total of 4 years settled contracts with a combined general wage increase of more than 7% on top of the average annual increase for those steps, for those in steps, which is close to 4%. In return, we are asking our K through 8 teachers to have a workday that matches their Unit A colleagues at the high school so that we can have breathing room in that day to give them the preps and discretionary professional time they have been asking for. I am sympathetic to a lot of the issues around teacher autonomy in public education, especially after the last decade or more of increasing federal and state mandates. But that is the nature of the job these days, and Brookline is still one of the best places to be a teacher. Our teachers are some of the highest paid in the Commonwealth, especially given that we have a shorter work year than most and shorter work days. We have fought as a school committee to protect the materials fee program so our teachers can have their children here in Brookline. We provide terrific professional development and opportunities for innovation, augmented by our generous partners at the PTOs, the Brookline Education Foundation, and the 21st Century Fund. And the town contributes 83% of health insurance premiums at a time when other districts are negotiating that number to 70% or less. To those frustrated by the lack of an agreement, I share your frustration. We have made serious, respectful, and substantial offers. I hope very much that we will hear something from the BEU very soon besides no. That is my update.
And the next vacation session is when?
29th.
All right, thank you very much. To end the superintendent's update on a slightly happier note, it saddens me that this was to be Dr. Connolly's last meeting as our interim superintendent of schools. He wants to thank the school committee for allowing him to serve as interim superintendent of schools. It's been an honor for him to serve in this capacity. He's very appreciative of the support and cooperation the school committee and the entire school community has provided him throughout this very busy and productive school year. He wishes the entire Brookline school community continued success. And we are incredibly grateful for his service. We have some small tokens of appreciation, which we will give to him some other time when he is here. And hopefully he won't go far, as they say. All right. Sure.
I know that we were planning on saying some things to Dr. Connolly.
We were.
At least I was.
So was I.
To the extent that maybe this, the big recording of this will be available to him, I would just encourage those of you who were going to do that maybe to do it anyway. I can't let this meeting pass without saying something about what Joe, in fact, I just finished writing it to him in the card, which is that I started thinking about the fact that this year started without him as our interim superintendent, and it just is impossible to imagine that Brookline, I mean, what an incredible year we have come through, and the idea that we could have done anything that we've done without Joe in that office, providing the extraordinary grace and calm and kindness and calm. I mean, he's so calm. He's just so calm all the time, and so incredibly kind. I can't remember who it was. I won't out the person on the staff who said this, but I remember we were talking, and they said, he's just the nicest person in the world. He can say anything, and people will like him anyway. And it's absolutely true, and what a difference he made for us to be able to tackle what we've had to tackle this year. So I'm so glad that he has given us a little bit more of his time, that his wife is allowing him to give us a little bit more of his time, and that Andrew will be able to lean on him and continue to learn from him as he takes over that office. So Joe, if you ever get a chance to watch this, to listen to this, thank you so much for just an extraordinary presence in Brookline, putting us back together.
Perhaps we can impress him back into service, have him come back in September, and we can say nice things to him then.
You know, I was just thinking about that. It's wonderful to say these things, but I'd really like him to be here to hear them. Yeah, so I would rather, because he will be back, I think he will be back.
Yes, oh, absolutely. No, it was just an evening that he had a personal issue.
No, that's not the point. No, what I'm saying is that I really think we need to say it to him rather than just saying it to the public who's here, who's nice, and the cameras. But we could do that maybe in the fall to the cameras, and it would still be okay if people feel comfortable with that. But you can go ahead.
Well, it seems to me the obvious place to say it would be at the luncheon. Right. But I am getting on an airplane while you are going to the luncheon, so I won't be here for it. So I am going to say what I had to say now.
It's fine.
I think that Joe has taught us a great deal this year. He has not only taught us, but helped us to remember the way I think things used to happen and how we can regain the kind of culture and community that we want. He is, as Rebecca said, he is the kindest man. But he isn't only kind, there is an immediate response that people have. They trust him. And he pulls people to work together in ways that we need to learn. It is very important to have people all on the same page, able to agree and disagree, but ultimately working together. And I think over the past more than a few years, we have lost some of that ability. I think that he listens, he talks, people listen to him and they realize that he has your best interests at heart. Now, you may not necessarily agree that they're your best interests, but they're presented in such a way that one is willing to consider them as a possibility. And once you are willing to consider it as a possibility, then sometimes you can come around to realize that what he's saying to you is what you need to hear and what you need to do. And I think that what he has done this year is he has set us back on a course that we had veered from in terms of our system and its way of dealing with issues within the system. I think that we are at a much better place than we were in October in terms of our ability to move forward. There are still a lot of problems we have to solve, but I don't see that. I do see a lot of sense of frustration, but I don't see now people, at least people within this room and possibly the wider school community or some of the staff in the wider school community. But I think people in this room are feeling much more hopeful about where we might get to. I know that we're all worried about where we're going. It's pretty scary when you think about the way we're growing and what we have to do and where we have to get the money, and it's enough to make you stay awake at night. But I think that the way he's handled things makes us realize that we're all in this together, and we can do these things. We can solve these problems, and we can help one another when the problems are not always so solvable. So I think he's given us a real gift this year. And I hope he's back next year supporting us, because he will help.
All right, it is time for public comment. Maybe the public would like to comment on this as well. Anyone signed up for public comment? Okay. All right, you're welcome. Juliet Eastland.
Yes. Thank you. I'm Juliet Eastland from Davis Avenue, and first of all, I want to thank you for the time you've put in this year. It's clearly been a lot of time, so thank you. I'm sorry to end things on a little bit more of a down note, but I just wanted to convey my experience as a parent. We moved here for the schools, and cumulatively, my kids have been in school here for 9 years, and we have been extremely involved, Pierce parents, with the PTO and the newsletter and class events, because it's a really, really wonderful community. And the teachers are fantastic, the people are fantastic. We are very sad to be taking our kids out of the Brookline schools for next year. And I hope maybe we will come back to the high school, but here's why. It just has become clear to us that wherever the breakdown is, there is some support that the teachers are not getting, and therefore the kids are not getting. And I'll just give you a few examples. There have been several instances this year of violence by students in the classroom, and there was not enough help for the teacher. So classrooms have been evacuated. It's been a very difficult environment for my kids to learn in. And this is not due to any bad people. These are good kids. These are fantastic teachers. Everyone's heart is in the right place. but there are some resources that are not getting to where they're needed. And we have a couple of very new teachers who it seems are not getting the support they need and the kind of the help on the ground that they need. And I guess I would just end by saying I've spoken to a couple parents who have not really been involved, not been following the whole negotiations thing, and a couple of them said to me, well, gosh, you know, I voted for the override, like what happened? So I think it might be very useful to put out a sort of statement of exactly what happened to override money, because I think a lot of this conversation has been about money, but the teachers I've spoken to really haven't mentioned the money. So I'm not necessarily putting blame anywhere. I'm just sharing my experience, and that we are sad to leave. So, thank you.
Thank you for coming. It's our policy not to comment on public comment, but we appreciate your coming out tonight. I'm sorry we were delayed on the schedule. Is there anybody else who wishes to make public comment? Okay. School committee actions, we have 2 actions. One is a proposed vote to approve the 2016-17 school year tuition for non-resident students attending the public schools of Brookline. Mary Ellen just left. Why don't we do the other one first? Why don't we do an appointment to the EDCO Collaborative Advisory Council for 2016-17? Do you want to just explain what this is? And
Sure, I'll be happy to. So as you all are aware, EDCO used to have 2 boards, or maybe you're not aware. One was a nonprofit and one was the Education Collaborative. And the 2 boards met simultaneously, had separate agendas, but met simultaneously. And on the nonprofit side, there were 2 voting members. On the EDCO Collaboratives, well, I think there were 2 voting members actually on both at that point. So everybody voted. When the collaborative reform bills went through, that got changed, and there's now only 1 voting member. EDCO, in their wisdom, and also I pushed for it because I think it's important, decided to have an advisory council that had, was able to attend all the meetings, speak up, do everything, except there would be, the advisory council person could not vote. The voting member could be, and either of which could be a school committee member or a superintendent on either the advisory council or mind you, this is 1 meeting and 1 group. So I have been your voting member for the last few years, and right now EDCO is in a lot of issues in terms of possible mergers, maybe not mergers. There's a great deal of stuff that one needs to know the history of to do. You voted me, I think, the last time, the voting member, and I would recommend that Mr. Bott be the advisory council member, at least for the beginning till he gets up to speed. And if at some point you want to be the voting member, I'm happy to give that over too. I think we've all discussed EDCO and whether, the issues of it being in Bedford and our use of it, and I think that will be a discussion throughout this year. So that I would recommend that we appoint Mr. Bott as the advisory council as the advisory council member of the EDCO board with his agreement.
all right, Ms. Stone has seconded. Unfortunately for you, Mr. Bott, Dr. Connolly thought you'd be excellent in this position. And so, and since one of the members is usually a school committee member and the other one is usually a superintendent, that would be you. So I think the only rationale for not having you as a voting member as opposed to the advisory member is that if you're the voting member, you have to be at all the meetings, right?
Well, they need a quorum.
They need a quorum.
And it's become more and more difficult to get the quorum.
Right. And it's where are these meetings
in Bedford.
Located? In Bedford, right. And so I think that Dr. Connolly's sense anyway was that maybe at least for the beginning it would make sense if you absolutely had to be there to vote. Maybe this was something that would be a good use of Ms. Charlevsky's time.
And
if you want to change it, we can completely change it.
The committee here may know that I'm on the executive committee of the board too. So I think I could probably continue as the advisory council being on the executive committee, but that, you should just be aware of that.
So what's the makeup of these two boards? Is one
School,
of them?
one school committee member, one,
But-
how many school committee
So
members?
are they each, I was under the impression maybe we were talking about something else, that one of them was
One-
mostly superintendents.
No. EDCO meets as a board and as advisory council.
Together. Okay.
Together. It's one board, and it always has been. What happened, and it used to be 2 voting members, now it's 1 voting member.
So, okay.
So does the advisory board, the advisory member isn't counted in the quorum?
No.
So in other words, you have to be there.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly. And usually the first meeting of the year is a good meeting to go to because most people show up for the first meeting, so you know who's there and get to meet people more than anything else. And that's usually like the third, well, you'll get the email with it, but I think it's the third Thursday. It's always the Thursday morning.
Any other thoughts on this from anybody? All right. So we have a motion. Do we have a second, Ms. Gatto? Okay. Oh, no, Ms. Stone. All those in favor? All right. Congratulations, Mr. Vatt.
A long tradition of the school committee giving you stuff you hadn't counted on.
But at least, but it's not the voting role. Just tell Helen what you want her to do. All right, proposed vote to approve the 2016-17 school year tuition for non-resident students attending the public schools of Brookline. Ms. Dunn, do you want to give us a 1-sentence or 2-sentence description of what this is? We've already discussed this at length in finance.
Yes, that's right.
So for the community members, the Brookline High School participates in the, what's called the abbreviation is either SEVIS. It's the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Student and Exchange Visitor Program, whereby students come to the Brookline High School for 1 year on an exchange, and they are issued visas to do that for that exchange year. And for the committee tonight, we're proposing a tuition for the upcoming school year of $18,546. And just to make sure I make this very clear is that the items that are listed under other attendance costs are information for families so that they know that there are field trips, there's lunch, there's breakfast, and that also if they need ELL services, those would all be additional charges above and beyond the tuition rate. And just to make sure that people know that tuition what tuition covers and what it doesn't cover. So that was more than a sentence.
All right,
But
Dr. Jackson.
At one point in time, a long time ago now probably, you had referenced the possibility or the option to actually not be a SEVIS district. And I'm just curious why did we explore that? And if so, why we chose to continue and do this?
So that item has sort of been tabled for additional discussion. And currently we only have 2 students that have applied for this year that I'm aware of. There might be 3. But we still, that issue hasn't sort of been it's just been tabled for this point. And I do want to just sort of make a point is that because we have 2 or 3 students, it's not a significant number of students.
All right, I should have asked for a motion earlier.
I was just going to make
more further comments.
One other point in response to your question, Dr. Jackson, which is that if we were to no longer participate in the SEVIS program, we would want to give enough notice for people to, so even if, so we would still be doing it this year because we wouldn't have wanted to do that in such short notice.
Maybe I may be missing something, but what is the difference in terms of calculating the SEVIS tuition versus the DESE tuition calculation? Or how do they end up being different, I guess?
So the, if you notice, the DESE per pupil is FY15. That's actually 2 years ago. This is a tuition rate for next year. So I added a CPI so that we're actually stay in line with what our real costs are for providing tuition. So there's a lag time on the DESE per pupil. We could charge more than the per pupil. The school committee can set the rate for what it would like to charge.
So I noticed that the DESE is higher than the FY16 CVIS.
Yes, because that was FY14's DESE per pupil.
I see,
So what
okay.
I did was I said, we need to charge what we're actually going to pay.
Did you already say this?
This is finance, yeah.
Yeah, finance.
Oh, and finance not here.
That's okay.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
glad you didn't just say it now, and I totally missed it.
Yeah, that's okay.
But now for the public,
For
everyone.
now, for the public,
All
is
right,
that
thank you very much.
I added a
Minutes.
CPI, so we're actually closer to what we really are probably going to, that tuition will really be. And since we can do it, why not?
All right. Is there a motion? Ms. Dram, is there a second? Ms. Down, all those in favor, or any further discussion? Those in favor? All right, it's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Dunn. We have one presentation, a report out on the district-wide parent and staff 2015-2016 survey. Mr. Lummis?
Show you just one slide. So in your packet, you actually have the results of the staff and family surveys. What am I missing here? Oh, there I got it. And I will just show you, so I'll talk a little about timeline, talk a little the way they're administered, and show a couple, just one few details about, not about the results, but about administering it, because things changed this year. So as it says in the report you have, or the update rather, the summary, we've just recently got the results back. We have shared them as of Tuesday with the schools. And what the school staff received from the principals on Tuesday was the district-wide report, which you have, and then the individual school reports. Okay. A few changes happened this year. We've gotten the surveys back later this year for a couple important reasons. First, we started working with Panorama Education, vendor that that helped us not only really administer the surveys and then get us the reports and the data back, but we administered the surveys quite a bit later than last year due to staff transition, meaning me coming on, being new, but also a leave of absence. We allowed Corey Stott to take a maternity leave, which was nice of us, I'd say. But that delayed the administering, first of all. We also redid the questions, a number of the questions this year, in response to feedback we received last year. So that took some time to start from scratch. We looked at the DESE model surveys. We looked at Panorama has a number of different, has essentially a question bank from the surveys that they've been doing with districts across the country, and then also the feedback we got from last year's survey. So we worked with a few principals, both the K-8 level as well as the high school. They got some info from teachers about those questions that we were developing, and we also revised the family survey as well. Let me just show you in terms of. So at this point, we're not sharing. We're not sharing at this point any detailed analysis because that wouldn't be prudent. That wouldn't be. We haven't done that analysis yet because we just got the data back, and we also want to give the schools a chance to dig into the data prior to the upcoming school year, so they can look at it, learn from it, and make adjustments or make plans to address any areas of particular either challenge or also their strengths. Interim Superintendent has suggested that during your workshop day, perhaps, we could give you a more thorough analysis because we'll have done it by that point. That's why we're not really sort of going through the data in detail at this point. I do want to show you a few updates or just information about the administration. So what we have on the screen here is last year's administration as well as this year's. So you can see response rates have gone up quite a bit. from 2000 on both surveys, the staff and the family surveys. So from a range of 41% was the low last year to 79% being higher in terms of the staff survey on the left. This year we bumped that up quite a bit, 55 to 83. Our threshold was to get 60% response rate from the staff across all schools. Only one school, BHS, was just slightly below that. You can also see that our response rate, the number of responses this year, the staff were quite a bit higher. For both staff and family surveys, we increased by about 30% in terms of the number of responses. And that's partially due, maybe even primarily due to the fact that we're working with Panorama. Their administration, their support, their reminders really helped quite a bit. We could also make sure, we also did a better job this year of surveying all staff. You see the administration dates there. As I described, reason for the delay. We actually were able to get the reports back quicker than last year, but because we administered them later, that's the getting it to you. On the family surveys, you also see that we upped the response by about 30% as well, from 2,200 to almost 2,900. Of 4,900 households in the system, these aren't quite comparable. We've actually sent these surveys out to 10,000 parents and guardians. We got almost 2,900 responses. It's hard for us to know at this point if those aren't 2,900 separate households, is what I'm trying to say. But we did 2,900 responses from over 10,000 people, and we do have 4,900 households in the system. So that's just an update on administration, update on you have the results yourselves. I think you've received them today, and we are happy and willing to discuss them at greater length in terms of what are strengths that have been identified by staff and parents, and also look at areas of particular interest, challenge, perhaps at the summer workshop.
Good. Dr. Jackson.
So I guess one question I have is, given the changes, not just in administration, but in the questions, will schools be given and district staff be sort of thinking about this as a baseline, or are you actually trying to do, are there items you're going to be comparing on that you kept, or how are you thinking about that in terms of?
There are some that have been kept. I mean, there's a bunch that have been kept, actually. The responses are a little bit different. So we think we can do some comparison, but ultimately looking at this as a baseline, yeah.
And then my other question is, when are we planning, or are we planning to do a student survey, which I know we've talked about in the past?
Yeah, that, to my understanding, needs to be negotiated and cannot have any bearing on evaluation. So that's still.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not the intent. I'm just trying to, that's by agreement. That's would never be the intention. But that's one of the factors that makes it more complicated to move forward with it. Yeah. Yep. One more thing to add, also the family surveys were translated into 7 languages, and those are also shared. I don't have the response rates in terms of how many surveys were answered in those other languages, but certainly can get that for you at another date.
Any other questions? Okay, so we look forward to getting a more substantive update after the discussion in the buildings. Okay, unless there are further questions, we will see if there's new business. There are many things that have been, the only thing that I have in terms of new business is we have a very full workshop agenda that seems filling up by the moment. The only piece of homework I will assign is for any current subcommittee chairs, if you can come back with a review of this past year and your sense of what the priorities are for next year, we will go around and hear those. So I guess I'm looking at Beth, Lisa, curriculum, and capital, who's not here. And then the list will be too long. We know the list will be too long, and then we will say the list is too long, and then we will cut it down, and we will really, really cut it down. So that will be one of our tasks. Okay, anything else? Otherwise, we will have need for an executive session. All right, so we have need for an executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with Brookline Educators Union, Units A, B, and Paras, and also with non-aligned personnel, central administration.
Ms. Cohen, can you pull the committee?
Ms. Tram? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, we are adjourned for the school year. Thank you very much. We'll see everyone in September.